Hello and welcome to the Supercharge Your Sales Velocity podcast, the show where I help you drive more opportunities, bigger deals and faster wins. I'm Fergal and today I'm delighted to welcome a fantastic guest, Olivia Lockwood. Olivia is the founder of Open Up Coaching, where she combines neuroscience, sales expertise and a dash of humor to help teams break through barriers, accelerate deals and transform their pipelines. Now, with over 30 years of global experience from coaching Fortune 500 companies like Microsoft and Apple to leading game-changing deal clinics that unlocked millions in new revenue, Olivia knows exactly what it takes to ignite growth and overcome buyer indecision. She believes complacency kills deals, consistency closes them. And she's here today to share how you could open up your sales approach, close more business, and have a lot more fun doing it. Olivia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Fergal. I'm thrilled to be here.
So listen, you started out as cabin crew and you've made your way now all the way through that career into a brand new career with Open Up Coaching. So just give me a sense of how that journey went for you.
Wow. What a question. So yes, when I finished university in Texas, I went back to Jamaica, which is where my mother's family is from and I grew up. And it was really hard. I had island fever is what we call it. Jamaica just felt so small after Texas. My grandmother saw that I was sad. She said, why don't you go up to Miami, as Jamaicans do when you have enough money, for the weekend, visit your cousins. So I went up and I drove one of my cousins to a Pan Am open interview. And when I went into the parking lot, the gentleman said, "Oh, you can't wait. You have to go in." So we both went in and I got a job. My poor cousin didn't. She still hasn't forgiven me fully. But it just sounded perfect. It sounded like something really fun to do. And they were going to pay me to travel the world. And I had, already been an exchange student to Scotland and to Italy. And, I just wanted to see more of the world. So I took it as an opportunity. It was fabulous. I realized I'm not cut out for public service, dealing with the general public. I'm way too mean. But I did it. I didn't get fired. Sadly, Pan Am died. They were the first company I bankrupted, I like to say. And then I had to get a real job. And by this point, I was married and I was thinking, yeah, at some point you probably need to earn more than $1,000 a month. This is way back. Okay. So I got a great job on a support hotline at Arthur Andersen. They had a technology division in Florida where we were living. So I started off in support, like, I've got a problem, help me. And then I moved into, inside sales. And then I got promoted to outside sales. I spent 10 happy years at Arthur Andersen. And then they imploded, the second company I bankrupted.
Right. Well, at least it was a 10-year gap this time between first.
Yeah, 10-year gap. It only took me 4 years to bankrupt Pan Am, 10 years to bankrupt Andersen. Now, you do realize I had nothing to do with those bankruptcies. I'm just a little employee making a joke. But then when Arthur Andersen imploded after the Enron debacle, I was not sure what to do. I was pregnant with my first child. My husband is a computer programmer. He's always had a good job. I just didn't know what to do. And when you're a little lost, sometimes you hear things more than you might hear when you're really happy or settled. And one of my friends said, everybody comes to you for advice. Why don't you figure out how to get paid for giving advice? And I didn't even know what that was called. Like, coaching, consulting, I was trained as a business consultant at Andersen. So I don't want to undervalue my learning and my education and my experience. I'm not doing that. But she just said, pick something that you're already so naturally good at and get better at it. And I will thank Wendy Kerr for the rest of my life for saying that to me. We met when we were living in Japan. And she was just so kind to me. And so I launched Open Up Coaching in 2004. I was in Japan in 2003. I launched Open Up Coaching in Singapore in 2004. And then we moved, it's crazy. We won't even go into that. We got back to the US in 2007. And I've been here remotely doing it ever since.
I've been reading up a little bit about your success with these things called deal clinics. And I'm reading these crazy metrics, right? 73 clinics. What is it there? 500 opportunities, 8.6 million revenue. Come on, tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, what's going on there? Okay. So I refer to Open Up Coaching, which I'm self-employed. I don't have a bunch of people. It's just me and my husband and some really good friends. So I'm a sales training and coaching consultant. All I do is help sales teams or sales enablement teams get better. That's like all I do. But I've had the privilege of working with all of the top training companies. At Arthur Andersen, I was trained by Mike Bosworth with solution selling. I've been on the Challenger sales team since they started, 15 years. I work with Imparta in the UK. I work with, it's just crazy. Like I've touched all these sales training. I've worked so many tech companies. I think I'm on my 85th or 86th tech company now. But what deal clinics are, it's the easiest way first to access me and my time, which includes my brain. I always come with my brain. But what it does is it just says, get a team together, a sales manager, a sales professional, the individual contributing account director, account exec. You bring your customer success person if you have one, bring your solutions engineer if you have one. I don't know what words everybody's using. Sometimes it's called your pod, your account team, but a small group, it's like under 6 people. But you have to have a manager and a direct report. Like that's the only requirement. Well, and an account, those 3 things. And we get on the phone and I ask the account director, tell me what you know. And I write notes furiously. And then I ask the manager, what would you add in? And I write furiously. And then I ask them questions. So the question that comes up almost every time is, thank you for telling me all about your product. I did ask you to tell me about your customer. And then there's dead silence. And then everybody's like looking at each other and they get really, I'm like, no, we're still going to have fun. We're still going to have fun. If we don't know it, we're going to look it up. And that's what makes the deal coaching clinic so different, because often we want to focus on a deal, that specific opportunity, but we cannot because we don't know enough about the account, the company. So usually we have to lift up before we go deeper. I love doing that. And I'll go out to the internet with them. I'm like, well, let's go find out. Of course, I was thinking about the podcast and talking to you again. And I was thinking, what are the 1 or 2 things that come up in almost every deal coaching clinic? And the first one that comes up is focus. If you ask someone like, what's your focus? Okay, Fergal, what's your focus in a sales call?
Discovery.
Discovery, right? What does discovery actually mean to you?
I want to get in behind the client's needs, understand their initiatives. What are they about? What's going on?
Their needs, their initiatives, what's going on with them. See, it's oriented to the other. But then, not you, Fergal, I know you're a master at this, but many of our less experienced, right, professionals, they want to just learn the first need, attach it to their product or solution. They don't want to go that little bit deeper, right? And worse, they don't go in with an educated guess around what they're likely to discover. And this is the reason that those deal coaching clinics, it's like, well, make a guess. What do you think they're worried about? There's only 4 things companies care about. They need to make more money, they need to save more money, they need to avoid risk, and they need to deliver on their mission or mandate. So which one of those do you think they're most worried about?
And even if you're not an expert in the industry, there's enough tools at our disposal now to educate ourselves on any industry, right?
5 minutes. You can be so much more ready. So the first one is always, can we shift our focus like fully to the customer? Like just don't even talk about yourself except to say your name and where you're sitting. Like be polite. But so that focus is always a huge part of a deal coaching clinic. How do we show that we're focused on them? What do we say that proves we're focused on them? What small amount of research, literally 5 to 10 minutes, do we need to do to focus on them? The second thing we always come up with is productivity. It's like, what makes this company productive? Well, I don't know. Why would I care? Like, it's like, because you're trying to sell them something that's supposed to make them better.
Dig a bit deeper there. Productivity. What do you mean by that?
So productivity is how people in a company do more with less. So if you're in a hardcore manufacturing, you'll talk about efficiency and assembly line, time and days without, It's however you measure your success, your KPIs, before you get to the financial metrics. That's what productivity is about. The simplest example I can give you of productivity, and I hope you've had this experience because it's pretty universal. Have you ever shut your laptop down and then sat there waiting for it to reboot?
I used to have had Windows laptops, but not anymore now. My lovely Apple Mac.
Oh, we're pitching
Sorry,
a brand,
I'm
baby.
an Apple snob, but yes, I do fondly remember those Microsoft days. Yes,
Yeah. Do you even on your Mac, do you have that minute or two while it's still the little
I'm going.
smiley?
I'll just say yes. I'll say yes.
Just say yes.
Yeah.
Usually you have a minute
Yeah.
or two.
Mm.
Well, that minute or two costs your company something. You're not productive.
Yeah.
I'm not saying human beings need to be productive, 100% of the time. I drink tea. This is not productive. However, you do want to be more productive. So if you think of anything in your day where you waste time, that's lack of productivity, right? So productivity is the efficiency of people. It's the efficiency that companies are driving for. And what happens is most companies will say, we want to buy something to be more productive. We want to buy something to be more efficient. We want to buy something to get to market faster. We want to solve this problem to make more money or save more money, right? And so, what most sales professionals fail to do, and I think they fail to do it because they've never been taught to do it. Like they don't know it matters. And I'm not a harsh person. I'm not faulting anyone for not knowing. I really am not. I'm also not faulting people for knowing and not practicing. If your managers don't insist that you practice this stuff, well, whose fault is that? Not yours. The second thing that we always end up talking about is, well, how do we measure productivity? Like, what's a measure of efficiency? And so there's a really simple one. Again, I grew up with accountants at Arthur Andersen. This will not be news to you, but you take a company's annual revenue and you divide it by their number of employees, and you have an annual measure of efficiency. Then you divide that, if you're living in the US like I am, like 2,000 hours, because it's 50 weeks, 40 hours a week. Don't tell me about Ireland, Fergal. I know you people barely work. No, I'm just kidding.
We're about 45 hours. Yeah.
So, but you take it, where your company's headquartered. Now you have an hourly. And then if you really need to, I was talking about the minutes that you don't waste on your Mac, but I have to still waste on my poor little computer, right? And you just multiply it. So you can say if every day your employees are spending 5 minutes and they're worth $2 an hour, right? That's $10 times your 100,000 employees every day. That's a waste that I can help you remove. Not all of it.
You're driving towards, if I can save you 5 minutes, 10 minutes per day, you can put a monetary value on that.
Yep. But I'm driving to something even different. See how you said driving towards save? I'm saying today you're wasting.
Yeah.
I'm making it painful because we won't have change. You have to make the current state painful before someone's willing to make a change for a future state gain. Every deal coaching clinic, the reason I think they're so helpful is they're specific to that team where the learners are today. But those two things come up in the vast majority of them. If a team comes back to me 2 or 3 times, it doesn't come up again. Do you know what I mean? They brought that with them. But those are 2 big themes. But I think the biggest thing that happens, and I don't want this to sound like woo, airy fairy, new age, nothing like that. This that comes up a lot is, now that I've thought differently, I've lifted up, like broadened my thinking about my customer. Now what happens? They're like, oh, we should be talking to them about this other product line. We should bring and the opportunities. They just see, the account team just sees more opportunities.
I mean, I think we're totally covered it on this one because I've a framework around key account planning, which is that precursor for me to getting down into the objectives, which are actually opportunities, right? Or deals. And I start off with, okay, current status of the account, but we get quickly into what is the client trying to achieve? What are their initiatives, but also who owns the initiatives? And then it's who do we know in terms of those people? Have we got relationships with them? Are they good, bad, or indifferent? How deep are they and how broad are they and the rest of it? And that's my starting point, because if we start off with just discussing an opportunity, okay, the opportunity may be completely valid and it's something that's being fleshed out with a client, fine. But to your point, you're missing the bigger picture in terms of growing more opportunity. because for my business, my mission statement is driving more opportunities, bigger deal sizes, faster wins. And if I can do some planning, proactive planning, and really get in behind what the client is trying to do, I'll nearly always find another opportunity. I mean, 99% of the time I will find another opportunity. I think we're very much aligned in terms of that. So just the deal clinic then, I get how it starts off. Maybe just give us a sense of how it finishes up. You've got loads of examples, I'm sure, where you've gone in, they didn't understand the client's needs, they've gone off and done that. Is it all done over a period of weeks? Is it much quicker than that? How does it actually all sit together?
So deal coaching clinics, now I know this is going to sound really old school, but they are an hour, not 30 minutes. We need time to think and digest. If they don't know the revenue, we look it up online. We do some of the work together so they see it's reasonable.
It's a workshop, or you call it the clinics.
They call it a clinic, but it's a workshop. Or even they call them whips, work in process. Where I don't know, they have all these names for them, but it's 60 minutes, 4 to 5 people thinking together about one topic. And we have a lot of fun. We laugh and we joke and we tease each other because that's just part of the energy of sales. Like it's all too serious, right? Sometimes, right? You said we want, more opportunities, larger deals, faster wins. One of the big things in deal coaching clinics and the tech companies I'm working with is walk away sooner. Please protect our cost of sales. I cannot forget that. That's why managers bring their teams back, because people are pursuing deals that they should have pulled out of the pipeline and killed a year or more ago. Okay. So there's that part as well.
So this is wrecking their win rate. It's increased the sales duration. Okay.
Yeah. So then what happens is in the 60 minutes, we assign each sort of task to a person. So if we don't know the net promoter score at the account and we look it up online, we ask the customer success person to confirm it. We do net promoter scores and employee engagement scores in almost all deal coaching clinics. Again, because we know that for net promoter score, customer, right, net promoter, when for every 10 points increase, 3.2% increase in net revenue. For every 10 points increase on employee net promoter score, employee engagement, it's a 2.1 increase.
Big numbers,
right? I know this is why companies do these surveys. It's why they don't invest. They go, oh, it's kind of fun. They know when they're satisfied customers, they're happier. And the idea is not static, it's improving, right? So we always talk about that. If we can't find it, we assign that to customer success. So you can see in the clinic, we're assigning, account director. You mentioned, who do we know? They're like, well, we need to talk to the CIO. We need to go high. I'm like, why? Why do you need to go high? Well, because we have to. Our boss says. For what reason?
Well, let me play devil's advocate. The reason is because they're the decision makers, right? So they're the ones holding the budget. If you're not talking to them, you're talking to people below them, you may not get the traction you need when it comes to closing deals.
Exactly. But if you're talking to them about your product, you haven't figured out the size of the problem, you can't start a cost of inaction calculation. Why would they want to talk to you? They won't.
So it's a timing thing, right?
Timing. It's a timing and information. And what I've found, especially today, we all know, right, that there's been budget approved, but it's not released. So the only executive I need to talk to is the CFO. If they're not buying my numbers, we're done. There is nobody out in nowhere that's going to go to the CFO. Give me my money. It's not going to happen. Right. So when people talk to me about decision makers and budget holders, I'm like, I love these people, but you don't have a message for them if you haven't done, some cost of inaction calculation. And every time I say cost of inaction, people go, oh, total cost of ownership. Nope. Oh, return on investment. Nope. Cost of inaction. If you don't do anything different, what are you losing? Nobody wants to do that. So that's what that productivity number helps you get with. That's what the NPS scores help you move towards. Those messages, it is crazy weird. The people who never wanted to talk to you before, you take that message in a voicemail or an email, they're calling you back. Like, where did this 13 million a day loss come from? Oh, look at that. I finally paid attention to something you care about. It's a game changer. And you have to be, again, as a sales professional, especially if you're experienced, you haven't done this before. This is a little crude. You got to pull on your big girl pants, be a little brave and say something you're not used to saying and wait for the reaction. Because almost all the time people go, oh, now that I see, you're really close, but we don't actually have 100,000 employees anymore. We're down to 95. Oh, big freaking whoop. But thank you, because now I've got real customer verified discovery.
I used to talk to clients where we would try and show them the money they were leaving on the table. You might be getting 5 million of value from me today. Here's a few ideas that we have where we can generate even more value. And yes, my price goes up, but there's a ratio here. I go up, which are leaving so much on the table. And the pushback you would often get, obviously, is, well, where did you come up with that number? It's a ridiculous number. And then it leads to a question, well, what is the number? Yeah. And you end up in a dialogue with the client where they're not arguing about the fact that there's extra value being left behind. They're talking about what that actual number is. I had one client where I gave a number and I actually said, it's actually a bit higher than that. And I was like, great, give me that number.
Yeah.
So I think it just feeds back into a discovery and your whole process for talking to their client and getting in behind, what they're about.
So I love what you just said. The number's actually higher than that. So I'm not sure. Have you heard of Cunningham's Law? Have you ever heard of that?
I don't.
Okay. So I think it was 1984, right at the beginning of the internet, when it was still DARPANet, somewhere in the US government. I don't know that much about it. There was a gentleman, his name was Ward Cunningham, and he noticed in the online forums of the time, right, which were just text 1-to-1, right, that if you put something out and your statement was correct, you got nothing. But if you put something out and it was wrong, everybody in that distribution list, back in the day we had distribution lists, would reply and correct you. And he realized the fastest way to gain attention to learn more, not just gain attention for attention's sake, but to gain attention to learn more, was to throw your educated guess out, your hypothesis, and wait for the improvement. And this is something I talk about constantly, because the number's higher than that. Oh, no way. We're not even close. What if we could only save you 1%? You know what I mean? Those techniques that we all use, they're tactics, but people are missing the underlying principle, right? They're missing the fact that if you are having a thought-provoking conversation with someone about something they care about, that the customer cares about, they're going to reveal more than if you're talking about what you care about. And that's number one. Number two is talk about it today, not the future. So it's not that I'm going to save you money in the future, leaving money on the table. Okay. Today, the way you're operating is costing you X dollars per hour, day, week, month, pick your time frame. That's too much. And zip it. And they get all defensive. You're just like, oh, listen, it's too much. It has to come down. And that's when you can go to okay, so the ridiculous number I brought in, you've now said it's a little higher, it's a little lower. Fantastic. We've got a number. Let's talk about what we confidently believe we could change in a quarter. And all of a sudden, that deal is like, you're not pushing that rock uphill anymore. It's just floating down the slope. And that's what we're looking for in the deal coaching clinics.
And I'm finding when I'm coaching on my key account planning workshops, one of the most difficult parts of the whole process is actually the last stage, which is client to value delivered.
Yes.
So we've gone through understanding their needs and we've created a nice vision statement. I have lovely objectives to meet. All my strategies are great, outlined down at the tactical level. I'm doing my stuff. And I'm asking the question, what value are we delivering for the clients prior to us starting the planning, but also now that you've got your objectives, what future value? And again, you get those crickets and tumbleweed and all the rest of it because it's actually a slightly tricky number to get hold of. And
Yeah.
it's funny, I often get a response, well, if I'm charging a client 2 million, that they're getting 2 million of value from me. And I said, no, that's what we cost them. I would like to think they're getting 10x on that cost, right? But let's try and figure it out. It took me a long time to get to the point where I used to just think client value delivery. And there is a process to go through to try and come up with a number. To your point, it can be any number really, because if you throw a wrong number, you're probably more likely to get a nice conversation coming back at you. But I think related to this, teams are a little scared of sharing their plan with the client. So you're doing your deal clinic, right? And you've found out more about the company and you've got some initiatives but it's all, I'll call it in-house, internal. You're talking to the sales team and the wider team around them. But are they sharing any of that with the client? So I'm curious, my question to you is that something, because I coach them to go and share, don't have to share the whole thing, but share a substantial portion of your plan with the client and bring them in, because it's not something you do to the client, it's something you should be doing with the client. So I'm curious, do you have something in that area?
Yeah. So that question you asked me a while ago, like, what happens next or what happens during this conversation? One of the things, now remember, not every company I work with uses all the same techniques or sales methodology. So I keep it sort of agnostic. Like we're talking about business conversations. But one of the things I always tell them is one of the outcomes needs to be someone needs to write down as many numbers as you can, as many pain points as you can come up with. We look for 10 threads. So 3 ways they're not making enough money, 3 ways they're overspending, 3 ways they're taking on risk that they're underestimating, and at least 1 way they're missing their mission. Okay? So that's 10 threads. That's 10 numbers that you add up. And you say, today, these are the areas of overspend or waste as we see them. Get reactions, usually from 9 or 10 people, not one person. You need some engineers, you need some finance, you need procurement, you need operations, HR, whomever. Then you come back as a team and you evaluate. That's when we say, write a reverse close plan. Okay. Now it's so old school. Remember go, no go sheets and, mutual action plans. They've had so many names, but we say, just put it in a table. On this day, we agreed you have a problem that's this size. And I'm going to give you as close of an example as I can. So I work with one company. They do networks. They install networks for, telecoms. From the day they get a purchase order, it takes 6 months to have a new facility live because they have to like dig lines and put cable in and put it into buildings and test and blah, blah, blah. Every time they send out a reverse close plan and says, if you sign on September 1, you're go live March 1st, they get an order. Every single time. Because nobody can wait till spring to go live. This is the North America. You must go live in the winter. And they're like, but that's so easy. I'm like, so why weren't you doing it? I mean, I just showed up for an hour.
The reverse closed plan is so powerful, isn't it? It's such a powerful
Right?
technique. Yeah.
But to your point, it's what we're thinking shared with our customer. And the customer can correct it. They can scratch out lines. They can tell you, oh, our CFO is interim. They're leaving soon. We got to wait for the next one. So slow down your pipeline. You're not going anywhere. I told you this earlier. Like I'm a big CFO fan. So the outcomes are always 3 next steps for the manager and there's no set amount of next steps for the account directors, but they usually have a whole list, and then what happens is they either remove the deal. We have about, I think we're tracking like maybe 1 in 5 now, where the opportunity they thought they had, they don't have. They find another one usually, but that one is just dead. Okay. Like I love this one. That one guy said, yeah, well, we need to sell some products in China. And I'm like, okay, I thought you closed your Chinese distribution. We did. How are you going to sell them? We can't. So why, like, did you hear what you just said to me? We need to sell in China and we can't.
I'm just wondering, is this a segue? Because I do want to talk a little bit about neuroscience, because I know you like a bit of that. And I was doing a bit of research on you, and COMB came up, COMB.
Yeah. Yep.
Please educate me more.
Okay. So combi, so I'm going to give the Mind Gym huge credit for this. Now, they didn't invent it. Like, I think it was Albert Bandura back in the 1950s came up with combi. And it is capability for the C, opportunity for the O, motivation for the M, and then the B is for behavior. So if you have capability and an opportunity and the motivation, you can change your behavior. So it's a framework that most of us, weirdly, we have learned it as skill, will, hill. Skill is the capability.
They're related. The two are
They're
okay.
the same. It's just a renaming.
Right.
It was a
Okay.
1980s consultant renamed it to skill and will. For skill is capability, will is motivation. They left out opportunity because they didn't have a word. And then in 2008, a different consultant said, oh, that's the hill. That's the barrier that the company puts in front of you. So skill, will, hill is COM. It's actually skill, hill, will, if you want to be super clear. But what it means is when you talk to a person first and you check in on them in that order, right? And the questions are things like, do you believe you can do this? Yes, I do
And
believe I can
Olivia,
do it.
would this relate to a conversation, say, between a manager and their account manager?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Fergal, right? Or peers. We've learned now that in sales teams, because managers are just overstressed, the best coaching is actually happening between peers. So, like Fergal, if you're really good at key account planning and I'm really good at presentation, you help me get better at key account planning and I help you get better at presenting. It's called peer pairing. Remember, we also always used to do shadowing. Olivia, you suck. Go follow Fergal. Okay. And you're like puffed up and oh my God, it's so demotivating, right? But now, if we say, hey, Fergal, as awesome as you are, you need a little help with this. Do you see if you make it reciprocal, you learn so much more?
And I think we've lost a little bit that with the whole virtual working now, hybrid working. We're not together in the office anymore, and that sense of teamwork. I mean, people tell me, well, sales is a very individualistic sport, and I get that. Yes, we can have our own targets and all the rest of it, but
Yeah.
I do think team play is so important. So you're hitting upon that there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, and I say this all the time because I was actually certified and it used to be called Hive, High Impact Virtual Experiences. Listen to the year 2005, 15 years before the global pandemic turned us all virtual. So we already knew how to create really good. We will never replace human to human connection, but we can get 80 to 90% of the same experience if we do it right. Turn your freaking camera on. Turn the dings off. Okay? Be nice. Invite people. I mean, we've never met in person, right? And we may never. But if we bumped into each other in an airport, we'd be like, "Oh my gosh, so great. This has been good because we're focused. We're being genuine, right?" I feel like I go on so many calls. There'll be 18 little black squares.
And they're present, but not present.
They're
Everybody's
not.
tapping away on the laptop, looking at emails, answering Slack messages, whatever they're up to, right? And then
Yeah.
they're just not present.
Yeah, they're not present. And I'm not very forgiving of that because of my neuroscience background, because I've done all this research. Now, I want to be super honest because I don't want anyone to think I'm a big fat liar. I did all the 2 years master's program, but when I wrote my papers, they were not good enough. So I do not have a degree, right? I just have the knowledge that I apply. I'm really good friends with the two neuroscientists that taught my classes. So when I screw it up, I call them like, did I get this wrong?
I call it, you have enough knowledge to be dangerous.
Very dangerous. What I have taken away from all of that learning is the human brain is good at one thing at a time. So be quick, linear, not multitasking, right? Get the text written, then come back to your email, then go, right? Don't try to well, just a minute, just no, because I'm not listening to you. It's terrible.
It actually goes back to, at the top of the conversation here, we were talking about productivity, and it's almost like there's a myth that I feel more productive if I'm doing 2, 3, 4 things at the same time. So when I'm waiting on something to load up, I'm over here checking my emails and then I'm doing something else, but it's actually not, right? It's because you're you're probably taking longer to do each one of those individual tasks than you would if you
Yep.
just focused
Oh
on
my
them.
God, you nailed it. So each task takes longer and is done less accurately. So you make more mistakes in the email you're typing while you're trying to listen to the podcast. You forget what the podcast host is saying. And here's the thing, we also exhaust our brains. So what happens is by the end of the day, we've tried so hard to use our brain in a way that is not effective. It just doesn't work. Like we're cranky. Notice when you argue with your loved ones, it's hardly ever in the morning. It's almost always towards the end of the day. I mean, they have tons of research like on crimes of passion. They happen late in the day when we've lost our ability to self-regulate
Really?
because we've exhausted our brains. I tell people, when in the day do you breathe fresh air? They're like, what are you talking about? Like, I live in New York in an apartment and it's winter. Like, yemmed it out, like down the lift, out to the curb, look at the sky. Nope. Well, that's why you're cranky.
It's actually happened to me. I've actually had maybe 2 days inside and not actually realized I never stepped foot. No, it's the depth of winds or whatever. Maybe just an excuse with the weather and so on. But still, it's not healthy.
Yeah, it's
Really
not.
isn't.
The thing about neuroscience is still there's way more that we don't know than we do know. But some of the things we do know, right? We should go back to. You said it, be present, like turn your full attention to the task at hand, right? But then there's this other part. We have two kinds of activity in the brain, right? So there are things that we can do two things at once. So the only household chore that I actually enjoy and I don't outsource is laundry. I can fold laundry, listen to a podcast, have a conversation. We used to use that horrible expression, you can walk and chew gum. They're so habitual, you're not using any brain power to do it. If you had something like that, of course you can do two things at once. But those are not the things we're paid to do at work. They're not.
Absolutely not. I'm sorry, did I distract you just from finishing Com B? Was there any
Oh,
more
yeah,
you
I
wanted
did.
to go
Yeah.
down that
So
path? Yeah,
COM-B.
sorry.
So the COM-B was developed by a psychologist, but it led into what we now know from neuroscience. So the first thing about capability and now remember, we're talking in a sort of a sales, situation. So we would expect a manager or a peer to ask the questions like, so, you know, do you believe you can do this? Do you think you have the ability, that's the capability to do this? Is there something you need to learn or something you don't know? You check in. And if they say they're not sure, it means no.
So they could come back and say, "Look, I'm not getting the necessary support I need from a technical person within the company because this is a technical sale, and I'm not getting enough airtime with that person. So no, I don't have the capability."
Right.
Is that
So
is that
they don't have the capability, and that not getting the technical person is the opportunity. That's the O. That's a
Yeah, you're
hill.
right. Yeah, exactly. So they don't have the capability in terms of delivering whatever technical, I won't say solution, but whatever aspect
Right.
of the deal. So they can't do it themselves. So they rely on someone else, but actually that person is not available. So therefore the opportunity is not there. Right. Okay.
There you go. And that's when the best managers, the best leaders will say, okay, is this something that you could learn over time on your own to do yourself? Is it so technical you'll always need another
In other
resource?
words, I may not be able to solve that opportunity issue with getting you that individual. So can we get your capability up to a level that would, okay. And sorry, motivation here. So if I'm having that capability issue, the opportunity is a problem for me as well. My motivation drops, I presume.
Sometimes you're highly motivated, but you still can't hurdle the opportunity.
Right. So you're very keen to do it, but you
Yeah.
can't because the
And
capability. Okay.
sometimes, let me not disparage my beloved sales tribe. Some of us are just lazy ass. We are not motivated to learn more. Like literally, we want everybody to do everything for us. I've had a solutions engineer for 20 years, and that's why it's three. If you don't have the motivation, you're not going to get the behavior change.
Okay. So when you're coaching now, if the motivation is high, then you can definitely tackle the capability and the opportunity,
Right.
right? And if the motivation is low, then you have a different task, right?
And one
Yeah.
of the things that I tell leaders, because they don't want to hear this, is I say, look, if someone is not motivated to learn in role, right? Not everything, but something, continuous improvement. If they're not motivated to learn in their current role, they are not viable for promotion. And you should tell them that. You got to learn new stuff all the time. You got to be practicing and getting better at something all the time.
But these are the hard conversations we need to have as managers, right?
Yeah. And that's why I love the Calm B, because I can literally, I tell everybody I work with, I'm like, just write it down. What are you capable of? What are you motivated to do? And are there any opportunities that you need me to provide you? We're done.
And sorry, Olivia, it's the combination of those three that determines your behavior, is it?
Behavior change. The B stands for changing behavior, because humans are not static. Behavior can improve or it can decline. Have you seen some quiet quitting, like, or quit and stay? I don't know what you refer to it in.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on it, whether it's a thing or not. But yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, people, like I'm living with two young 23 and 24-year-olds, and they go to work at 9, they're home at 5, they take their full half an hour lunch, their 2 15-minute breaks. They are both professionals. One is in payroll, one is in HR. And there's no extra effort, like zero, right? They're like, why should I do more? This is what they're paying me to do. And I'm like, well, how are you going to get promoted? I guess somebody's going to die and I'll get their job. And I'm just like, to me, it's a real thing. Part of it is just burnout. There's like, seems like a very heavy environment around us. But part of it is they're not doing something they're passionate about, and they don't realize that it's going to hold them back, right? Find something you're passionate about in whatever job. And I'm not saying work yourself to the bone and have no time for yourself, but I'm saying in the moments you're working, be more than just minimum. We still notice it. You want to hear a great story?
I do.
So you can't imagine that I was ever arrogant or cocksure. But my first year in my sales role, my first outside sales role, I was awarded Rookie of the Year. So I went to my boss, I need to be promoted. And he laughed, said, call me on Friday. And he literally, Ray Flores, I will love him forever. He just laughed. Call me on Friday. Because that was his office day. So I called him on Friday. He said, don't even start talking. He's like, listen to me. He goes, you're looking around at your team of 28 and you think you're the best of that team. And you are, for a person who started 1 year ago. He goes, but when I'm looking to promote somebody, I'm looking, right, not at the team of 28, not at the 60 in the US. I'm looking at the 600 across the globe. And I'm looking for the top 10% because I'm only promoting 60. And I'm actually looking at the top 1% because of that 60, 6 of them have to be RVPs in 5 years. You're not even close. Like, you're so far from me even looking at you. He goes, so read the job description of an RVP, then read the job description of a district manager, get a few of those skills and talk to me. And guess what? In 2 years, I was a district manager. But he told me, he's like, your peer group is not these 8 people you're hanging with. It's everybody in that role in our company.
I worked for a pretty large company back in the day, and I used to talk a bit about, you're actually competing against your peers. Like, we talk about competing against the competition. So we're trying to outsell the competition, but actually you're also trying to outsell your peers. And you're right. It's not just those in the room or the building. It's in the other countries and other regions that you're all competing with.
Go back to the COM-B. The capability is how much you can sell and the way in which you sell, the how and the what. Okay. The motivation is to always do a little better than your peers, right? Not just to be good, but the best. And then the opportunity is, now that I've been the best and I retired my quota in September instead of December, is there some project I can work on to learn something new for the last quarter instead of I'm just going to sit around and play some extra golf or whatever people do to fill their times these days. Remember, I grew up with all the guys, all the accountants, all they did was golf on Friday. You see, like, that model helps you motivate yourself, helps you create your own behavior change, or can be used externally to help you see what you might not see.
Like, I think there's the work that we get paid for, but there's also the work we do that helps us get paid more, but it's free stuff, right? And it's all It's outside of work usually. It's difficult, I think, as a manager, though, to have that conversation with your team, because the implication is you're asking them to work, longer hours or outside of work or whatever it might be. So I've always tried to frame it as, it's self-improvement. What books are you reading? What are you listening to on your way in on the bus or the train to work or whatever mode of transport you're doing? And it can only be maybe 40 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it can just push you a little bit further towards that top performer status, right?
It is so true. And I grew up the daughter of two teachers. So we read all the time. We played a lot. Every one of us did some sport to a highly competitive level. But and it was, it's back in the day. I'm an old person. But what I've noticed is, like, there's this language around bed rot and doom scrolling and binging. And I'm like, did you notice, like, you got home from work, right? You changed your clothes, you had something to eat, and you've literally been on that screen and it's now midnight. That is 7 hours.
Mm.
They're like, yeah. I'm like, what have you learned?
Zero.
And again, to your point, what if you took 40 minutes of that?
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
not
saying
much.
take all 7 hours.
Yeah, it's not much, is it?
It's astonishing. That's the word I always use, astonishing to me. What people are like, Olivia, how come I haven't watched this movie? I say, because I read books.
Listen, I want to squeeze a bit more value out of you, if you don't
Uh-oh,
mind, right?
squeeze.
Yeah. There's one topic I want to, just maybe we'll finish on this one. A constructive tension. Talk to me about that.
Ooh.
What's that about?
Okay. So constructive tension, it is the feeling, it's the experience of engagement in a conversation, or doesn't have to be in a conversation, but it's always between two people or more, right? One to many. And what it is if you think of a dial, right? In science, dials are called optimal arousal curves because they start 0 to 1. They don't have tails that, they're not distribution curves. Okay. So a dial, poof. If you are too far, right, not enough tension, which we call passive or unproductive, you're boring the people around you. It's just like, yeah, whatever. If you move to the middle, which we call assertive in psychology, constructive in neuroscience, people are engaged. Like, there's questions going back and forth. It's like, I just spoke over you. Like, that's constructive tension. It's that sense of, I want to share this and I want you to share that. Okay. It's a positive interchange. And then if you go too far, when there's too much tension in an interaction, it's called aggressive in psychology and destructive in neuroscience. So there's 3 phases of tension, and the dial should be observed by the leader in the conversation. So I'm trying to make you more engaged. I don't care how nervous I am. Doesn't matter that I'm terrified to have this conversation, right? I'm just trying to engage you and have you be in that place where you're thinking and learning and asking questions. That's what constructive tension is.
Right. Got it.
And the thing about it, the reason it matters is our brains only make new connections, light bulb moments, aha moments, eurekas, when we are in constructive tension. That's the neurochemistry. It's just enough dopamine, just enough cortisol.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not that there's extremes of one or the other, right? It's somewhere,
And
very,
the worst part is, in sales, we're so afraid of upsetting our customers, we lean passive.
we go native, right? Sometimes we just go with the flow, go native, as I call it.
Yeah.
We're just
Just calm.
too far on the customer side of the desk.
Yep. Yeah. And so, one of the things, again, that comes up a lot in the deal coaching clinics, it also comes up in almost all the training I do, is if a customer, someone you want to buy from you, if you're talking to them and they're just nodding, that is polite indifference. They are bored. They are waiting for you to leave. Goodbye. You are reducing access. They're not going to take your next call because you just wasted their time. At some point, the ratio is 1 insight every 8 minutes. They should go, oh, wait. Well, hang on. explain that? Go back. If they're not doing that, what are you doing?
Every 8 minutes.
That's the coaching ratio. When we look at the best coaches in the world, the people they talk to have a new thought, one every 8 minutes on average.
Got it. Olivia,
Yeah.
it's been a real pleasure talking to you. There's so many insights there, and as usual, we could continue the conversation
Forever.
for another hour or so. All right. Sometimes I finish off and I ask guests if they have a favorite quote, because my favorite quote at the moment is, "If you're serious about changing your life, you'll find a way. If you're not, you'll find an excuse." And I applied that, to me leaving my corporate job and kind of starting out myself. And I was looking at this quote for days on end, and I thought, I got to do the brave thing here and make the leap. How about you? Have you got a favorite quote?
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to go back to my tried and true favorite quote. So you probably have never heard of Paul Saginaw, but he is the founder of a bakery in the US called Zingerman's. He and his friend Ari started this bakery in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And his quote is, and I use it all the time, "When furious, get curious."
Right. That's it. Ooh, I
So
love it.
that it's really simple. But when you feel the rage or the anger or the disrespect rising, do not release that. It's probably not great for you or anyone around you. Get curious. Why is this triggering me? What's going on here? What can I ask this person? And I find it in sales, when you just get irritated with your customer, like don't get pissy, don't get unpleasant. Just, what prompted that response? I'm not sure I understand why you see it that way. Could you help me?
And I think that's a brilliant segue, which brings us right back to the start of the conversation about discovery and getting into all of that. That's really good. So listen, tell
I'm
me,
trying.
how can people find you if they want to learn more?
I guess the easiest way is probably LinkedIn, but I'm Olivia R. Lockwood on LinkedIn. And of course, my website, www.openupcoaching.com. So, yeah.
Olivia, thank you once again.
Oh, this was an absolute pleasure. I loved it. It was delightful. Thank
Same
you.
here. Same here.
Slán go fóill.